Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage, and what we're going to be doing today is rebooting an axle for the 2008 Acura MDX. So stay tuned. So if you're new to the channel, I just want to welcome you here, and hopefully you'll consider subscribing if you like what you see. Also, check out Car Apprentice on Instagram, X, and Facebook. I post lots of pictures and videos on those platforms before I post anything on YouTube. And occasionally I'll post things on those platforms I don't post on YouTube. Also, check out the website at carapprentice.com. And don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. So as you saw in other footage, the inner joint for the axle on the passenger side of this 2008 Acura MDX is leaking pretty badly. So we're going to reboot that today. And along the way, I also ran into an issue with the ball joint on the passenger side, so we'll talk a little bit about that. So, let's get into it. Okay, so before I get too far into this engine reassembly, what I'm going to do is reboot the axle now that I have access, because it's going to get pretty tight in here once we start adding components back on the car. So, what I'm going to do first off is unstake the axle nut from here. So I've got an old broken screwdriver that I use a lot. This may not fit, so you can try something like a cold chisel. Get that in there. Sometimes these things are staked down pretty far. This one I've already knocked out a little ways, so we should be okay here. But how I would do it, get a cold chisel like this, really narrow, get right in there, kind of gently hammering that in, and then kind of start lifting this a little bit and tapping upwards. That should lift it up. It's going to take a little bit of time to do that though. They're sometimes, like I said, they're staked in pretty far. Yeah, we're going to give that a shot. Alright, so I'm going to spin the nut off now. 36mm socket and a breaker bar. Put that on there. And I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. Actually, let me go a little further. There we go. I'm going to take the screwdriver that I have, put it in the vent on the brake rotor. It's locked in there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to stand on the breaker bar and pop this loose. Like that. And we'll take this out. There it is. I'm going to remove this pin from the ball joint nut. So I got a right angle pick tool. So I just grabbed onto the end of the pin right over here and just slide this out. Sometimes you might have to use a screwdriver right in this part. Alright, so I'm going to remove this ball joint nut. So I have a 19mm. Very little spacing here to get any sort of a wrench in there, like a ratchet I mean. So you can try the double wrench trick. Just hook another wrench on like this. Oops, wrong way. Like that, and then go this way. I have a cheater bar also, I like to use that instead. Like that. Break that loose. I'll just spin that out. Alright, so I always keep a nut around for ball joints. This is an M14 by 2 thread pitch. So we want to put that nut on here. Okay, get it nice and flush right there. Now, this is a really big ball joint. So we have to pull down on the boot a little bit so we can get the tool in. This is our tool right here we're going to use. So I want to do that carefully. I'm going to put a ton of grease on here, and I'll clean it off later. Just to make it a little slippery for the tool so it doesn't catch on the rubber. And also on the forks here. Slide this in. Notice the boot's kind of dropping down a little bit. That's what we want. Like that. Hopefully that turns out okay. I think that's about as far as it's going to go too. Alright, so I'm just going to run this down. Like that. So we've got a 19 on a long handle ratchet. That's loud. Okay, so that popped through. Just going to spin this off. Take this off. Take the nut off. Alright, so before I pull the ball joint out of the knuckle, I want to get this free because you can see right now it's not moving at all. Definitely do not use a metal hammer on that because you will damage the threads here and you will not like that. So don't do that. Plastic hammer works best instead of a metal hammer. I've also used a tool like this in the past, but this one doesn't work on this particular car because, as you can see, the studs are pretty big and the spacing is pretty wide. So that's not going to work. Now, I do have a block of wood and a hammer. I've tried that. That's worked before. Again, I don't know if that's going to work on this car because it feels pretty seized in there. I'm going to give it a shot though. And it's going to splinter there. Let's try that side. Yeah. That broke. So that is going to be fun to get that out of there. Okay, so nothing I've tried so far has worked at all. So I went to the AutoZone and I got this one. 57032 OEM Tools. And actually this is brand new. So that's cool. I might actually keep this. Let's open this up. So this is an axle puller. And you can use it with a slide hammer. You can also use it with something like this screw here. These are both OEM tools. Looks like the holes are bigger. Yeah, the holes are definitely a little bit bigger. So that'll go over like this. That looks good so far. So I'll take this off of here. Okay, and then we'll put this in here. We're going to try it without the nut for a second here. And we're going to put our lug nuts on. I have to tighten those down a little bit more. So we got a 19mm and long handle ratchet. Put the screwdriver up here. Oh, that's not working. All right, let me back this out. Looks like it's starting to cross thread there. That's no good. And it's starting to cross thread. Alright, so I tried this puller. You see it fits pretty well. with the screw from this puller, and you can see what happened to the screw right there. And I think what happened was, as it was going in, it was a little off center, and so it wasn't catching right, and it was throwing it off and caused it to cross thread. So I went on Amazon and found these bolts. These are 5/8 18, same as the screw. And I'm going to try putting a flat washer on like this, and then put this over that, and then thread this in to see if I can push it out that way. I want to get it started at least, so we'll see what happens. Too bad this one has a hole. I don't have another washer without a hole. Throw our lug nuts on. And we'll give this another shot. Got in there. 24 millimeter should work. Okay. Heard a pop. I'm not sure if that's a good pop or not. Okay, I'm going to stop, take this off, and take a look. Threads seem fine. See if that moved at all. And yes, it did move. Alright, so what we could do is put some penetrating oil back in there. So the liquid wrench, I could use that. I really don't like using a lot of penetrating oil. That stuff is really strong. But it looks like it's moving now, so that's a good thing. It's almost like we're using a hydraulic press, so that is kind of what I was thinking would work. So it is coming out. So I'm going to continue to press and see where we land. Alright, so you can see this is loose now. What I ended up doing is I grabbed the pry bar and I just pried on the non-shield part of the axle, between that and the hub. Next, I'll show how I should have removed the axle to avoid difficulties reinstalling it, and in the process tearing the ball joint boot. We'll then cut to the axle reboot. Okay, so we're going to take the brake caliper off first. There's a 12 right here. Right, and then there are two 19s back here. The sizing on all the bolts on these cars, all the fasteners, is pretty huge. I'm not used to that. So 19 millimeters. Swing this out a little bit. One bolt. Okay, that's out. And we'll take this off. And before I do that, I have an S hook right here. Just going to try to hang it from there, I think. That's good for now. Alright, so there is a sensor over here. This is the wire for it. I had it clipped on over here and took the bolt out. So there is a bolt back up here. That's a 10, it looks like. There it is. So that's a little more movement there. I think that's going to be good enough. I'm going to keep an eye on this though for sure. Alright, so we're going to go after these two nuts and bolts. I have swung the caliper around this way so they have a little more space to work on this. I don't think I'm going to need anything to hold this side just yet. just going to work on getting that nut off. So that's 24 millimeter. There we go. And this one down here. That was a lot easier. And I'm going to take this one off first, since it's coming out already. Alright. Now, we need to get this top one off. So I'm going to be careful because once this comes out, the whole thing's going to swing down this way. I still have the tie rod in over here, so that should help us out. Keep things stable. Okay. So brass hammer. Swing this back around. There we go. So we got the bolts out. I got an S-hook right here. We're going to try to hook this onto the strut up here. Okay. Yeah, that's not the right angle. Right there is fine, I think. Okay. Move that over a little more. Okay. So that's where we stand right now. Okay, so I need to knock the axle out. This one appears to be a lot easier than other axles I've dealt with on Honda cars. Usually the axle is right up against the intermediate shaft. So I'm going to look at a couple options. I've got a broken extension that I keep around for this kind of purpose. Or one of my favorite options is to take a pry bar and turn it either, use it upside down like that, and then hit on the end of it. It might work this way too. Probably a few more hits. It may fall to the ground, so I'm going to try to catch it before it does. You may want to put something soft on the ground on this side so you don't damage the threads. I'll probably do that. Make that decision. Put the foam down there. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that was a good idea to put the foam there. Alright. And that is out. Alright, so there's our axle. You can see there's a lot of grease escaping around this boot. And so I think the axle's fine, but it is pretty dry, it sounds like. Okay, so I've got the axle and the jaw horse. I'm going to cut both of these bands off here. So I've got some snips. This stuff's really messy too. I don't like axle grease at all. This stuff will get all over your clothes, and if you get it on your clothes, it's hard to get out. It's hard to get off your hands too, so just wear gloves, I would say, if you're doing this job. There we go. So like right in here, there's rubber in there, but you can kind of get your snips right in here and then just cut that free. There we go. So I have a utility knife. I'm just going to cut this off now. Okay. I'll try cleaning it up, see what happens. So those are the rollers right there. So left, top, and right. Left, top, and right. Alright, so I'm just going to wipe this off. I may grab some brake cleaner also, but for now I'm just going to wipe this off. See how it looks. Alright, that's somewhat clean. Alright, so as you know, I'm a little averse to using chemicals, so I spray some Simple Green Pro HD on here. I'm just going to let that sit for a little bit. Just want to get mainly just all the grease off more than anything. I don't really care about making it look pretty or anything. Stuff works really well, so see that coming right off. And then on the inside, I just wiped it. It's pretty clean on the inside. So if you wanted to, you could grab some brake cleaner and clean it off, but I'm not going to go to that extra step. And while I'm here, I'm also going to use a wire brush and just kind of clean this splines off here. Alright, so I went back and looked at the footage. So this side here is the top, this side is the right, and this side is the left. So it goes on like that. Now when I pulled these off, you're supposed to apparently line up the rollers too. They're supposed to come straight off. When I pulled this off, the rollers were spinning. They were moving as I was pulling it off, so I'm not going to worry about those at all. I'm just going to make sure that they go in their correct locations, but in terms of how they're oriented, I'm not going to worry about that. Alright, so we're going to take the spider gear off next. So I'm going to mark across here. This has to be put back on exactly where it comes off. So make a mark across here. I have cleaned this off. I use a little bit of Simple Green Pro HD to clean off the grease. That's good. Alright, so I'm going to take this clip off the end. There we go. So our marks are right there. Just going to slide this down, hopefully. Try a plastic hammer. There we go. Alright, so I've wiped the splines off. I'm going to put a little duct tape on here. This is no residue duct tape that I like to use, as I've talked about many times. That'll protect the boot so we can slide that on easily. Alright, so here's a boot kit I got from Honda. Part number is 44017 STX A01. New boot. There is a band. Another band. Grease pack. And you get another clip so we can replace our old clip. And an axle nut. Okay, so I have run my hands around here again. I just want to make sure that the tape on the end is down far enough that I can slide the boot over it without it getting caught on it. Slide this down, just kind of work it on. There we go. So there's a groove right there. This part of the boot goes right, catches right on that groove. Alright, then I'll just take the tape off. I can find the end of it. Alright, so we'll put our spider gear back on. Remember, there's a mark here that corresponds with the mark I made here. There we go. Just like that. So these two marks are lined up. Alright, let's put our new clip on. Looks like there's a flat and a rounded side. I'm not sure that it matters too much. I'm going to put the flat side down like that. And there's a groove that this slips into also. There we go. Okay, that's in. Okay, so we're going to put these rollers back on. Now, when I took them off, I didn't observe which side faces out. And in the service manual, it says the high side should be facing out. When I look at these, they look the same to me. So one of the indicators might be, there's a couple, I'll take a picture of this, but there's a couple of score marks around the outside here. So that tells me that this most likely faces out, because there's nothing for it to rub up against here. But on the inside of the housing, it can rub up against the inside of the housing though. So that is my guess that this faces in, because there's no score marks there, and that side faces out. So that would go on like that. But make sure you observe that, make sure you pay attention. And this one is the top one that goes here. Also check that these are moving correctly. This one's moving just fine. There's no greediness or anything like that. So I'm going to put this one out. Wear marks are over here. So I'm going to put that out like that. Alright, one other thing that fell out of this box as I was trying to open it, there's a new clip. I think this goes on the intermediate shaft. Yeah, that's where that goes. Okay, so let's open the grease pack now. Pull that out of here. And it's got a little tip right there for dispensing the grease. Just tear across there. Like that. That's going to be too slow. Let me just cut it open. Just going to put it all in here. Try to empty this thing out. This is the top. So I wrote a T on here somewhere. There's a T right there. So that goes on here. I think that's right there. That seems good. Alright, so the length of this axle from here all the way over to here, right there, should be 22.42 to 22.62 inches. If it is shorter than that, then you're supposed to pull on this joint to kind of pull this out a little bit, get into that range, and then take a screwdriver and right on the end of the boot, Just come in here with the screwdriver to let the air out. Do that on all 3 corners. So this one's at 22.5, so we're good. All right, I'm going to install the bands for the boot. I don't have any sort of a specialty tool, so I'm just going to use these push pin pliers right there I got from Harbor Freight. So I'm going to do this one first, small one. And the tail, I'm going to curl that inside quite a bit so that it can actually form around the inside of the clamp. Here, push this over, locks in like that to start us off. And then I've got these 2 parts here. I'm just going to grab and try to squeeze them together, and hopefully the tail will go all the way over here. It's got to go a long way. Yep. Almost there. Hold that for a second. So I got to the first one. I can't get all the way to the second one over here. There we go. Wow. That is crazy. So that one's locked on using these push pin pliers. I think these were, what, $9 at Harbor Freight? To see how tight that is, though. That's on. We'll do this one too the same way. So just got to do what you got to do sometimes. Sometimes you don't have the right tool, just got to make it work. And latch that right there for now. So the little points on the top, I tried that. That didn't work too well. The points on the bottom worked much better. So we'll try that again. Hopefully we'll achieve the same result. That is really tight. There we go. Wow, that's tight. So this is the tool, Pittsburgh push pin pliers 63700.